on this computer. Awesome. So I wanted to start by kind of following up or kind of resuming the conversation we had last month about exiting strategies and protocols, um, and see if anything came up for anybody on reflection of that conversation. I know a couple things came up for me, and I'll share those if after anybody else who wants to share shares. But yeah, did anything come up for anybody else during that conversation, or like reflecting back on what we were talking about? Um, any more ideas or comments about the exiting strategies? Okay. Well, something that came up for me um, on reflection, and it was kind of serendipitous because it happened like the day after we had that meeting. I was out doing some outreach, and I was in the area that I used to camp in, and I had like a really emotional response to being there, and not in like a PTSD, like trauma sad kind of way, but in like a reflecting kind of way, reminiscing. I kind of grieved my experience of being homeless because I was kind of missing some of the fun times I had in that situation and in that spot. And so I kind of was thinking how that plays into that mental health aspect we were talking about when people first get housed. Because I was kind of thinking about, it's kind of a huge identity shift on top of like, your whole life is changing, but your identity and your sense of self will kind of change when you first become housed. And I think maybe it's something that we can kind of think about when we get these clients who are struggling with this new transition, and kind of maybe being trauma informed that maybe we work so hard to house people and we think that this is like the goal, we're doing this awesome thing, but some people really have okay times when they're living on the streets, and I think it's a bigger transition than even they notice or they know. So that's something that I was thinking about and thought I would share with you guys. Z put in the chat, not quite being prepared for life without assistance or worse times in housing. Would you mind elaborating on what you mean there, Z, if you're capable? I know you're at work and I'm sorry.
Okay, so which point do you want me to go off of first?
Wherever you feel like you should start.
Okay, give me 1 second because my phone just freaked out. Well, as far as the having a harder time being housed than on the streets, I will use a certain ex-boyfriend that that did not do well once he got housed. He went down the drug rabbit hole because he had a place to use drugs and it was a safe environment for him to use those drugs. And it was much harder for him to be housed than it was for him to be on the streets, because on the streets he actually had to get up and go find food and go find money and get the resources that he needed. Whereas once he was housed, they were all right there for him and he didn't know what to do with his time, and he kind of just spiraled down the rabbit hole. Without saying his name, I know you know who I mean. That's an example of how being housed can be a bad thing, because I don't think he was prepared to actually for that change, for that transition of being someone who's housed. And then my earlier point, which was not being quite prepared for life without assistance, is the transition from having, say, a housing situation where you have assistance with your rent and your utilities, not quite understanding how much rent and utilities come out to without that assistance.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely see what you're talking about with it being harder being housed because now you're comfortable and like maybe you're not working as hard to get food, you're not working as hard to have those basic needs met, and so then you fill that time with whatever else, whether that's friends that shouldn't be around or that's drugs, like you mentioned, and that can be really unfortunate. And I think that's why a lot of these programs we talked, I don't know if you were in this last meeting, but we talked a lot about how that wraparound service and supporting these people while they're in the housing programs is so important, you know, and we all kind of shared that there's check-ins that are happening, and that we all just want to support as much as we can.
Well, and it can be rough for the housing check-ins because not every client is available. And sometimes clients don't think that the housing check-ins are important, which is wrong. It's very important for you to speak with your housing person to make sure that you're both on the right track and you're both helping each other in whatever ways you both need as the housing coordinator and the housee. They're very important meetings. Please go to your once a month meeting.
You know what, I'd like to ask, I have, most of my clients are good with the monthly housing meetings, but I have a young lady who absolutely refuses to meet with me in the apartment. She's always wanting to coordinate at the public library, and I know she's not a substance abuse user. She's not, so that's not an issue. She continues to say it's a COVID issue. But at what point do you guys, I mean, I think that it's our responsibility to go into the apartment and make sure that the housing situation is clean and you know, they're following the lease agreement, but also taking care of the space. So at what point do you, so I was in a meeting one time where somebody said, well, we don't go to somebody's house if they don't want us to. But I think at some point we probably have that obligation to do that. So what do you guys suggest or recommend on that note?
Photos are a good way of going through that, particularly if COVID really is a concern. I understand completely the feeling of house and home being sanctuary and not wanting anyone to be near your sanctuary, keeping that a private space. But I also get where you're coming from, being a housing coordinator, that it is on you to make sure that they're doing well. So maybe if they don't want to go in the home, maybe do a video chat to like show, look, it looks clean, everything looks good. That way there's still that bubble of space and they're not letting anyone they're not comfortable with in their home, but they can still send you pictures or video to show like, look, I did the dishes, everything looks nice, I'm really excited, or things like that. Does that help?
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Thank you so much. And I do know this particular client. She's high functioning autistic, and so I think there's also a lot of other factors. So I don't want to push, but I bet you that would be a really helpful way to do that. So yes, thank you so much.
Tracy, I'm glad that you brought that up too, because this is something that I've been trying to implement in my program, as well as like the home inspections. You know, I always tell clients, you know, we can meet wherever you want to meet. If you're comfortable having me in your home, that's great. Love it. And I always tell clients that like, I want to respect your space, so I don't need to be in there all the time. But with I'm trying to implement these like 3 month, like every 3 months doing like a home inspection, because we had a client recently who nobody saw the inside of her apartment for 2.5 years. And then when she finally got evicted and we saw it, it is it's a horror story. And I use those like stories of things that have happened to explain like, you know, like, I don't think your apartment looks like that, but you know, we want to avoid this. My job is to prevent you from losing your housing, and home inspections are part of that. I always approach it from like, I'm not here to judge you, because it's hard to keep your home clean. I struggle to keep mine clean too. But you know, I do it, you know, as like, I'm like your companion in this. Like, I want to help you. Life skills are a part of this program. You know, a lot of our clients, they've never had a space that they've had to clean. They never learned those life skills. So just kind of approaching it from like a, you know, that helping standpoint, that may or may not work. I know that I'm still struggling with those monthly check-ins and those home inspections with clients who aren't used to having their service coordinator in their homes. it's a hard thing to start implementing. And that's why I try to implement it from the start with our new clients, because it's a lot easier because they're not used to it being any different. So that's, yeah, I'm kind of struggling. I'm with you on that. But I always just approach it from like a life skills helping preventing eviction standpoint. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Maybe also like a risk assessment of it. So say, for example, if you have a client who regularly doesn't have clean clothes, even though they have access to a laundromat, or are actually saying that they have issues cleaning their house. Because if you are a 14-year-old runaway youth and you've been on the street for most of your life, odds are you probably didn't have someone to teach you how to do laundry or how to do dishes, and they're figuring it out on their own, which makes it harder, just that much harder. And Kennedy, because you're here, you're welcome to use me as an example.
You know what else? It's sometimes clients think that we're, like you said, Kennedy, we're not there to judge them. They almost think you have to really tread very lightly, because I always want to let people know, clients know, I'm not a social worker. I'm not a probation officer. I'm not law enforcement. I am here to walk with you through this and get you to that place where you can do this on your own. And I think it takes a little bit of time for that trust to build. And once it does, it's evident, but it does take time. So I think there is some hesitation a lot of times. So we have to be very careful with that, most definitely.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to mention that. I had a friend who had like a subsidized housing thing, and there was a hole in her wall. Like her boyfriend had gotten mad and punched a hole in the wall. And because of that hole, she didn't want her housing coordinator anywhere near the space, because in her head, that hole is going to be the cause of me going back to the streets, because they're going to see that and it's going to be this whole ordeal. So I think it's really important that we really emphasize the fact that we're not here to judge. And if something's broken, I'm here to help you fix it. Like, I'll help you patch up that hole. I think it's really important that we, build that trust, because like you said, Tracy, it's scary having somebody come into your house, especially when that person helped you get that house. So getting that trust is so hard. I feel like I don't know. I don't have any advice on how to build that trust, but I just want to emphasize that that's super important, because I think a lot of the reason that we wouldn't want somebody in our home is that it's that fear that they're going to come in and judge it, or they're going to come in and see something wrong, and that could spiral into me being unhoused again. And I'm also glad you guys were mentioning the laundry thing, because the next part of this that I wanted to bring up, and maybe I can share my screen and show this to you guys. I'm going to send this out to everybody, but I was given these transition documents that are being used in New Hampshire. And it's really, really cool, because there's worksheets in there that are really cool and have like a readiness scale. So it's like, how ready am I to start doing my own laundry? Maybe I'm at a 1 and I've never done laundry before. Maybe I'm at a 10 and I'm like, yeah, dude, I do my laundry every week, obviously. So it kind of like rates how comfortable they are with different tasks. And it also has like fact sheets, tips and tricks. Like there's one page that's all about separating lights and darks in your laundry. There's a page all about like how to wash dishes properly, how to hang your clothes to dry, what can be washed and what can't be washed. And it really just breaks down what a lot of us would consider common sense or basic knowledge. It's not to a lot of people. And so it's a really helpful document. Like I said, it's like 100 and something pages. So I'll send it out to you guys. But it's really cool because it breaks down some of those really simple tasks. And we can hand that to clients. And then it's not like us assuming that you don't know what you're doing. But if you don't, here's this thing. And we don't have to have an awkward conversation about this. You can just read this informational pamphlet. And it's tasks from, like I said, laundry all the way up to like making a bank account and the pros and cons of credit cards. It's a really all-inclusive, very well done document. And I think it'd be really cool if maybe next month's meeting, we can sit down and see if we can maybe implement something like that into that exiting protocol. And not even just the exiting, starting from the beginning of housing that client, kind of walk them through these different things. They also mentioned something called the Ansel Casey assessment, and I had never heard of that before. And I did it once I read that, and it's really cool because it kind of ranks where people are at with life skills. You know, like one of the first questions is like, I know how and where to access the internet, which I know we like to think in this day and age, yeah, we all know how to do that, but some people don't. And it kind of just really lays out for us where this client is at and what supports they need and how we can help them in this journey. So yeah, I think if we could develop a document like this one that they're using in New Hampshire, it could really revolutionize how we provide services.
We do the Ansel Casey for our program, and I know that in HMIS that's an area that we enter for each client. So every time we have somebody start, I give them the Ansel Casey questionnaire so they complete that. But it is a good tool. But I like the idea of sort of a checklist for the individual.
Maybe checking in at multiple points during the program with that checklist to see what they've improved on or gotten better with. Because when you're on the streets, a lot of the time you won't answer everything clearly on questionnaires just because you look at life from a different perspective. And the answer that for certain things you might answer differently at the beginning versus in the middle or the end of your turn.
Yeah, we use it here in Gallup. When we do our intakes, we don't give them the worksheet just because we feel like that we try to do that as a rapport starter. So we talk, it's more of a conversation with them, getting to know where they're at, explaining to them. It's not to like rank them or anything. It's just to get to know where they're at and what services we can start helping them with, or, you know, just kind of like figuring out where we're going to start with case management with them. And then it's also required to do after a year to see where their score, if it went higher or not, than when they exit the program. So here in Gallup, we do use it. I don't think it's required. I don't think the other offices use it, but we still like to use it just because it gives us a better understanding of our clients and where to start case management. So hopefully we can start building can start using those at the other offices as well, because we think it helps us. And then same with the walkthroughs, it's also we changed it to include it in our service participation agreement. So right in intake, we're also already discussing walkthroughs, explaining that the first few months might be more than usual, like once a month. And then after that, once they get the hang of, you know, maintaining their own unit, then we back off. And then it's just being able to provide them with tools. So if they know they know when to report damages and if they're needing help with talking to the landlord, we're there. So just letting them know when they first enter the program. But we also have a walkthrough checklist as well that we use. So hopefully we can get a system going on with all offices here, or with the STAR program soon. But I like the Casey life skills, and the walkthroughs I think are important, but also respecting privacy and boundaries. Sorry, kind of rambled on.
No, definitely. I like what you're saying. I'm curious about this, the housing, the walkthrough checklist you were talking about. What kinds of things are included on that checklist?
Jody and Ty, do you guys have that with you? And I guess it's not official, and I think this is also an update, is that I'm transitioning from service coordinator to the program manager to program director. So I'm filling Body's position as well. So I'm handing off kind of my clients to Tyrell and Jody right now.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, cool. So some of the questions we ask, are all housing and furnishings appear clean, safe, and good repair, and free from clutter, mice, and bugs. And then usually sometimes I like to ask them if they would like any more furnishings, like maybe if we can look for chairs or curtains or different things like that. and maybe we can, get that donated from, I don't know, somewhere. And then we also like to ask, like, is it free from clutters, mice and bugs? And then that way we can kind of have an idea of, if they have any bugs coming in, or and if they have any problems with mice, or things that are just laying around in the apartment or household. And then other things we like to ask are, if they have things for cooking, like a stove, microwave, the storage, the food cupboards are okay, the refrigerator is starting to work, and the freezer is working in good condition. Because I know sometimes like they're kind of afraid to report those issues to landlords. And so that becomes, sometimes an issue, like if their food is starting to go bad, or if their fans are starting to like wobble off the ceilings, or if they're starting to be like water damage, or a broken window or things like that, then we can let them know to reach out to the landlord and update them right away. That way, once it is in their name, if they do plan to leave the house, so those things don't come up and they get dinged for those type of things once the landlords do their end of their walkthrough, so when they end their lease. And then let me see, another thing is, if they we ask them if they have trouble paying their rent or utilities or any expenses they may come about, that we kind of have an idea if they are talking to the landlord, and if they are paying their utilities or their gas bill, and just kind of, I guess, understanding where they're at, and kind of just letting them know the different resources around the area if they can't pay their utility bills or the gas bills, or just letting their landlord know if they're not able to pay rent on time, and just kind of trying to keep good communication with those types of things. But it just kind of gives us an idea of how they are in their household and how they're progressing and the types of independent skills they have. And so, and then sometimes we can assist them, give them like little tips and kind of our own experiences when we had with past landlords, and that kind of gives them an idea they're not pretty much alone, and it's going to take time to kind of get over that anxious feeling of just trying to be independent. But those are some of the questions that we have. I don't know if Jody wants to elaborate more on that.
Ty explained a good chunk of it. I think there's a little bit additions to it. We'll ask them if it's a couple, we'll ask them if they're expecting, because we have had clients in the past that it just randomly told us like, oh, we had a baby last month. We had no idea. And like during those times we could have helped them prepare as much as we could, providing baby clothes, any type of baby items that they need, just so that we can help alleviate some of that stress. We asked them if they have any mental health appointments, physical appointments coming up, so that we can provide transportation, or if they need help setting up those appointments. If they do have like any drug or alcohol concerns, do they feel safe in the home? Just asking these questions if they need additional resources. Let's see. I think that's about it. Oh, if there are kiddos in the home, do they need childcare assistance or resources? Are they enrolled in school? Do they need any school supplies? I think those are the main items.
Awesome. I have a quick question about that drug and alcohol concern part. This is something that I've heard from a lot of friends about, like having their parents over even, or just having anybody over, is this concern, oh, my house smells like pot, or I have paraphernalia around. Is that something that you guys like would be concerned about, or is that something that would come up in these home visits that you'd be like, would it be a concern or an issue, I guess is my question?
So I have a client who has medical marijuana card, and he definitely has a lot of paraphernalia laying around. So what I just always ask him to do when I'm there, I always ask him to just find a home for them while he's not using them because I don't want the landlord to come in and service something and raise some concerns to me saying, I don't want this kid in my apartments because they're using drugs. But you know, I don't make a huge issue out of it if they're being productive on other areas of their circumstances. However, I just that's pretty much what I do. I think because I established that I'm not the police, I'm not probation, I'm not anybody, I don't want them to think that's what I'm noticing. I just casually ask them to just find a place for it.
Same with us. We explain to them, you know, making sure that they do know we're not the police or anything, but because of Housing First, we respect that it's Housing First, so that if we do smell or see anything, that we just explain to them that we just remind them of the service participation agreement. I know, although we're Housing First, but if there is any illegal activity going on here, if there's any suspicion of selling out of the home or anything like that, then we are mandated reporters whom we have to report. But usually we don't make a big deal out of it unless it's just something that if we see something, that's when we kind of really talk about being mandated reporters and the service participation agreement, but also just respecting that it's Housing First. Also just giving them resources. Sometimes if we suspect something, we give all households Narcan, just to give it to everyone. We don't try to single anyone out. We just say, you know, as we got Narcan again, we're going to give it to all the households. Even if we suspect something, we just go with the approach of, you know, we just gonna give it to you, just in case you have friends or family that may need it. We explain it to them, and then also just giving resources. If you feel like it could become a problem with marijuana or anything, drinking, here are resources. And if you don't feel comfortable reaching out, let us know. We are here to support you, but just making sure that they have the resources, they understand the service participation agreement, and that in some cases that we are mandated reporters. So just to be careful of kind of when we are around.
I think Yvette summed it up perfectly. I think the only other thing that we would do was just kind of remind the client of their lease, just so that they're aware of what is allowed and not allowed, just so that they don't have any problems with the landlords in the future.
Hi, I have a question. How do you guys build like a rapport or a relationship with y'all's client to the point to where they feel comfortable telling you guys that these things are happening in their apartment or place of living, like that there are mice or that there's holes in the walls or that there's mold, or like how do you build that relationship to where they feel like that they can tell you that without feeling like it's their fault?
I think it's so tough to answer that question, because out of all my clients or all the clients I've had in the past, it's been so vastly different. Some clients, like right from the first time they meet me, they're telling me their whole life story. Other clients, I don't get anything really out of them until right before their discharge, and anywhere in between. I always just approach all of them the same, is just, just reinforcing that, that I'm here to help. I'm not here to judge. I want to, whatever support you need, I can help with it, or at least find the answer if I don't know. And I just, every time I do monthly check-ins with clients, I'm always like, where to find me, how to contact me. Rapport building is, I don't know, it takes time, patience, the knowledge that, maybe you're, like you might not build like 100% rapport with this client the whole time, and that's totally okay too. everybody's so different, and I just approach it with, you know, I'm here to help. And some clients take off with that and some clients don't.
I think that something that's very important is just consistency. Consistently meeting monthly and going over, you know, the things that matter to them, but also matter to us. And that I've seen has been successful because they know what to expect and they start to build on what's expected. And I've seen that is really helpful. It's just that consistency. I know they come with very limited consistency, and so it really matters, I think, to have that. So that's one thing that I've seen as a real benefit.
Also, kind of on that note of like consistency too, something that's like helped me now that I just remembered this is just like when you're having conversations with people, I mean, you should be listening, but also just remembering even just the smallest things that your clients tell you, and just like, you know, even if it just comes up in conversation or bringing it up yourself. I've had clients tell me like, I didn't know, you know, you remembered that, or, you know, I, you know, shock people, you know, where they're like, oh, I didn't know that you cared about that. And I don't know, that's just like a really little thing that we can do, just not with our clients, but like everybody, is just even just the smallest things, because those are big things to our clients, you know, if they brought it up for a reason.
I agree with both Tracy and Kennedy. I think what's important that I really try to do is every intake can feel repetitive, and we're just kind of like, okay, we're in the motion of doing things, but just making sure that you take each intake as it's your first one. So you're spending each time with the client, trying to do each step with them, instead of kind of just sending them, oh, you go to that office to set up your utilities, just as the sheet. No, go with them, because you need to build that rapport. So making sure you take each intake like it's your first one, you're doing everything with them, getting to know them, so that you can start building that rapport. And then, like Tracy said, consistency has really helped. And I think that really is what works in the office, just being consistent, because then they know what to expect and they aren't kind of resistant to change when you're trying to make a different, like, oh, like trying to backtrack and then trying to make change. It's easier if you're consistent from the beginning and they have that rapport with you. And I don't know if Sarantino and Lakita want to speak on that, of like their experiences with their service coordinators and how, you know, what has helped them feel more comfortable with their service coordinators, with Tyrell and Jody, since they're from our office as well.
My experience with having Jody as my service coordinator is pretty great, because she always tries to help me find answers to questions that I have, or like any problems that I'm having. And especially when I'm doing my monthly goals, like I have a hard time trying to like think of like what goals that I need to be accomplished, and she'll give me like examples.
Wow, that was amazing. And the question I have to ask Lakita is, just from the sounds of Jody being your case manager, she sounds like she's doing amazing, but what are things that you feel like that she could be doing differently or better to make you more successful or help you be more successful? I'm just curious.
Lakita, I noticed that you unmuted, but I didn't hear anything. I don't know if that's just on my end or if all of us didn't hear anything. So I still don't hear. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say she might be having some difficulties, but yeah, I think that's a fantastic question whenever they have a chance to answer. And also too, I'm just kind of curious too, is if y'all provide like resources or anything to y'all's clients that's like, if you see this, let us know, because we want to maintain a quality of life or standard of your living situations. Like, do you provide them that resource to like, hey, if you see this, it's not okay, tell us, because we need to get it fixed as soon as possible. And by all means, trust me, I know when you hand people papers, it like you just kind of put them in a drawer and don't think of it. But I was just curious if y'all prioritize anything like that.
We don't do anything real structured in that manner, but one thing I always really try to stress when we're going over the lease agreement is the importance of, if there's something wrong with the apartment, if there's a maintenance issue, I make sure that I highlight the landlord's number and name and contact them. It's, you can contact me, but I really want you to start learning how to be responsible to contact the landlord directly. Just kind of teaching them ways to, the idea that this is your space and you're responsible for things that happen. And if something doesn't work right, you need to reach out to the landlord. A lot of times that takes a few steps. They'll call me or they'll text me, and then I'll say, did you reach out to the landlord? So I don't have any real checklist structure to that, but that's kind of the approach I take every time when we do the lease agreement. And it starts to sink in when after a few attempts to get me to do it for them. So that's really just how I handle it.
Yeah, one cool thing that was in those transition documents was like template texts to your landlord. So it was like, hey, blank, and you fill in your landlord's name. My washer hasn't been working for a while. Can we schedule a time for somebody to come look at it? And so it like gave you like these sample texts that for clients to look at and be like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna basically copy and paste that to my landlord. And that could alleviate a lot of anxiety, I think. And then I kind of want to take us back a step, back to that first question that Elijah asked, because they had some really awesome stuff going on in the chat. So Sarantino said that Tyrell's really good at listening to anything he has to say. And because of that, he feels comfortable talking about issues with neighbors or the apartment. And this part I think kind of stood out to me, is that Tyrell's really talkative with him and shares his own experiences. And that's something that's true for a lot of us. I'm not going to sit here and tell you my whole life story if I know nothing about you. So kind of having that like just equality, and that like, yeah, I'm going to share some things with you about myself, and we're just going to be open with each other. And then Z said, shout out to Kennedy. And so maybe Z, I know you're working, but maybe you could tell us some things that Kennedy's done that, inspired you to give her that shout out.
Well, as you know, I'm not always an easy person to keep up with, and Kennedy has done an amazing job of keeping up with my madness. From going through what my monthly goals are to making sure that I actually achieved said monthly goals the month later. Basically just checking in, making sure I get to places that I need to get to because lack of vehicle. Basically whenever I need her, so long as I am a nice human being and schedule more than a day or two in advance. I like to do a week in advance. That makes the world go a little bit smoother. She's there for me.
That's awesome. And then yeah, Lakita followed up because her bike wasn't working, and that everything that Jody's doing really helps and benefits a whole lot, and she can't think of anything that she can do better. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's really cool to see these connections happening in this space, that we have some YAB members that have their case managers here, and seeing you guys like connect to better the experience for other clients. I think this is so cool. I'm really excited about it. Do we have any other topic questions or additions to that conversation?
Sorry, I'm still not done, but,
Oh, sorry. So sorry.
no, no, you're chilling. No, but another thing that I just think would be very helpful, like, would be, what it like, well, I'm curious what that, like, a checklist would be like or look like. Because again, like, in my head, I just think of like clients, like what we think is like clean would be clean to them, or dirty to them, or what dirty would be to us is clean to them. So I just think it would be very empowering for your future clients to have a checklist of like, or whatever that looks like, to be like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be looking for, or this is what I'm supposed to be making sure it doesn't happen, whether it's leaks or like just, which it's minor things, but I just think that would be a fantastic resource for clients so that they're able to watch for it themselves and then not having to wait for their monthly checkup to be like, oh, yeah, I noticed that, but I didn't know if it was okay or not. Like, I just think that would be a fantastic resource and also very empowering to them because now you're equipping them with knowledge to what to look for.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's one thing I said, I'm going to share these transition documents with the group in an email because like I said, it's a really hefty document. So it's probably gonna be like a link to you guys. But I think it'd be really awesome if we could adopt some of those ideas because like there is a lot of checklists in there. And as I said, there's like those informational things. And if we could sit down in one of these meetings and go through, like maybe I'll send it to you guys, you guys can review it, and then we can come and have a conversation about that so that we can put together something like that for New Mexico for YHDP. And yeah, have some of those checklists. Like, yeah, there's a leak and I didn't notice it. Yeah, my sink's been dripping, but didn't bother me, so I didn't say anything about it. And then now you have mold, or it's easy for things to kind of get away from you. So I think, yeah, Elijah, I completely agree with you that really lining out everything that you should be looking for in your house is empowering.
Especially from the perspective of someone who's never had a home before and wouldn't know to look for that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I also love the input from somebody that maybe not necessarily has never had a home before, but I'd like to know, like, I think Elijah made the comment, like, we have there's an expectation that we have of cleanliness, but what is the expectation that would be coming from the client that they would really want or need for us to kind of check in with, to add to that questionnaire or that checklist? So I love that idea. And I think that would be really productive for our group and for all of us who are checking in with clients. Definitely. I support it.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic to just set the standard of like cleanliness, or because again, we're handling clients that aren't aware of the standard or whatever the case may be. And I think it's part of our job to be like, well, this is what it should look like, or if this is happening, that's not okay. So I just think that's, again, very empowering to just equip these clients with knowledge of what to look for in a case like this.
And-
I'm curious,
go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, I'm just curious if in those life skills kind of trainings and those opportunities, how much of their skills are being like passed down from those opportunities to the client. Because just speaking from myself, and I can think back of like learning how to wash dishes and how to do these simple tasks, like it really took somebody walking me through it, and even like just having me shadow them to see it. And I'm thinking back as a kid, but if somebody hasn't really done that or been exposed to that as an adult, I've seen some adults that just like all they do is buy disposable plates and silverware, and they just throw it away. And so I'm just curious, is there that part of the life skills is like shadowing and walking through those very simple tasks that maybe some folks are so far behind that they're embarrassed to ask about or ashamed to even bring up and be like, I don't know how to do this. Even like sweeping a floor, I can think about some folks whenever I was working at Dream Tree at the shelter, and they've never learned how to sweep a floor. Like how do you walk somebody through that without being condescending, and really support them through that and explain that it's okay, it's simple, but if you don't know how to do it, then you have to learn, like somebody has to teach that.
Maybe offer how to lessons, like for people who still need to know, who need to learn how to wash their dishes or how to do their laundry, how to fold laundry. That's one that I've seen a lot. Is there's about 5 different ways to do everything, and folding laundry is not an exception. Maybe having like that is something that you could do if they wanted or needed it.
I think the hard thing with that is, you know, if I don't know how to sweep my floor, I'm not gonna really want to admit that because I feel like I should know that, and it's not my fault that I don't. So if you ask me, hey, do you know how to sweep your floor? I'm probably gonna say yes, even if I don't. So it's kind of hard to like find that line of, like, so like you don't want to be condescending. And so it's, yeah, that's kind of where I think is gonna be like the rough part with that. But there should be an aspect of like, I'm gonna walk you through these chore lists. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe that could be done with that walkthrough checklist that I think Tyrell was telling us about that. And maybe in one of your first meetings with the clients, kind of create a walkthrough list with them. Like, when I come to your house, what do you want me to like kind of remind you about? Do you want me to be like, hey, you got some dishes to do? Like, what is your expectation for your house, and how can I help you maintain that? And then in that conversation, it might come up like, yeah, that'd be great, but I don't really know how to wash dishes. This is just an idea of like creating that walkthrough list with them, or creating a cleanliness checklist with them to kind of see where their standard of cleanliness is and how you can assist that.
Yeah, and I just to chime in on that too, I think a valid point would be, because people could get offended, and then that can kind of be like triggering and stuff. So I think maybe like nonviolent conflict resolution type deals too, and strategies to not like get to that point where the other person is like feeling defensive because they don't know how to do something that they feel like they should, you know. So I think some conflict resolution kind of skills are super important too, with that kind of slippery slope.
I think a good way of approaching this, and but would probably be like a curriculum of a sorts of like, hey, this is what we do. If you know how to do it, awesome. Just bear with us, like kind of thing. Or also just maybe offer those classes and then just do them, and then if they're able to attend. It's a very hard subject because one, it's like time and staff, and then you also have clients who don't want to do anything, who don't want anything to do with you. So it's kind of, I understand the trouble aspects of it all, but from the topic that we're talking about is how do you approach this without being condemning or making somebody feel not like dumb per se. Yeah, so I think that would just be a fantastic point, is like, hey, this is what we're doing, bear with us if you know how to do it, if you don't. And I think like from a personal point of that is like, okay, cool, I don't have to sit here and tell them I don't know how to do it. I can just watch them and still learn something from that.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, Elijah, I remember when I was getting like that lesson and just looking back at washing dishes, I kind of liked the fact, okay, this person is helping me wash the dishes. And they're kind of doing it for me, but I have to stand there and watch. So there is that incentive, like, okay, this person is really there to help. Even if it's just in this one instance and they already know how to do the dishes, but who doesn't want somebody else to do the dishes for them? Like in that instance, for the majority of people, if you're just washing maybe a load of dishes, it is maybe redundant, but for the small handful of folks that really don't know and that are afraid to ask or afraid to admit, then that would be really essential and helpful.
I
I think,
have 2 updates. One, I just
Wait, I have
talked to
one last
the boss.
thing to put on. Can I
go
add
ahead,
one
go
last
ahead.
thing to it too?
Of course.
I was thinking also, like just learning different hygiene skills too, like yeah, washing the dishes, but also like learning how to like brush your teeth and and those type of things too, and like making appointments for like the dentist or going to the urgent care, like if they have like some sort of back problem or getting them Medicaid so that they can go and get set up with like a physical therapist or that kind of stuff, and like setting up those appointments like isn't easy, and it kind of like takes like a certain kind of persistent patient kind of skill to just go and do it. So I think that should be like integrated in there also. That was just what I wanted to add. Thanks.
I also wanted to add, as far as I don't know how many clients live with food allergies or dietary restrictions. If you guys wanted like a list of how someone who does live with life-threatening allergens in a household with someone who eats said life-threatening allergens, there is a system for setting up your kitchen so that there's not cross-contamination. I can provide allergen info if necessary. And then Maya, I wanted to let you know that my boss said it would be okay if we put one of the drop boxes here at work.
Yeah, all of that is really awesome insights. See, I don't even know where to start. I'm gonna start with Alistair's point of the appointment making. That is huge. That's something that I even still struggle with. And now having my daughter, I've had to like really navigate, because when you have a baby the first year, they want to see your kid like every month at the pediatrician. And so setting up those appointments and maintaining that, remembering that you have that appointment, is huge. And it's a big struggle that, like I said, even myself, I struggle with it still sometimes. And Z, yes, about the Dropbox, please, please, please. Yeah, let's talk about that. Elijah's handling a lot of that. So maybe we can do like an email thread with all 3 of us to coordinate that, because that'd be awesome. And with the food allergen things, that would be so incredible. Maybe you can make like a video or something, because that's something that even beyond, just this housing world, just in your general life could be a thing. Even like with me and you, we're friends, and I have my fridge set up a certain way so that I don't contaminate food when you come over.
Yep.
So yeah, that would be awesome if you could provide some like videos
And
or
then
debriefs.
you've seen my kitchen where I have the section of I do not touch this counter will kill me, and then reorganizing the fridge so that I have a life-threatening allergy to dairy, and because things like milk will drip on things if the bottle breaks, we put all the dairy stuff at the very bottom so that even if something, say a thing of yogurt pops or whatever for my boyfriend who does eat dairy, it's not on my food, getting my food covered in dairy or risking a hospital trip.
I think a fantastic question to ask, or a conversation to be had, is like for providers, is we have our clients for 18 months or a year, whatever the case is. And what life skills can we help them attain to where when they leave our program or whatever the case may be, what can we do to equip them to feel like that they can be successful? Whether that's budgeting, or I think those are questions that which are probably already being asked or already being done as well. But I just think that equipping clients with life skills is such a important task for just prevention of homelessness also as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree about the life skills. I think that it's a really important aspect of this. And I love this conversation that's happening because there's a lot of really incredible ideas being shared here. And I think it's something that I'm gonna keep in mind. I don't really work directly with clients a lot, but I have a lot of friends that are starting their housing journey. And it's something that I'm definitely gonna keep in mind about, like, oh, maybe I should do that person's dishes and have them watch me, just to be like a cool, friendly person. Like, and that also builds that rapport. You know, this person's doing my dishes. Super cool. Yeah, I'm agreeing with everything that's being said. I love this.
Something that I found beneficial is providing a wall calendar and a marker. And when meeting, kind of talking and saying, okay, we're talking about cleaning the apartment. This is the day, like, you'll clean your bathroom. This is the day you'll do laundry, and then putting it on their calendar. And then that month going, when I come back, just saying, okay, so did you get all these tasks done? And it's really kind of teaching organization. So that's been a real value added sort of step that we've incorporated for clients.
Yeah,
I
I'm
have
sure
to ask it. I was going to say, I have to ask, like, how efficient is that? If you don't like, is it, or how do the clients partake in that as well? Like, are they okay to it, or do they feel like you're parenting them, or like?
No, I've actually had, I've had a lot of clients be really grateful to have that visual on their wall, because, you know, we talk and talk and talk, and they can, you know, they hear it, but then it's hard to, when I leave, for them to process, okay, what do I do next? And so I haven't had any clients get to the point where they felt like it was parenting. It's really been well received. And what I do though is I don't say, okay, this is the day you're going to do this. It's not like a chore list. I have them basically identify what they know they need to do, and then have them put it on the calendar. And so I'm kind of just there to facilitate. I'm not doing it for them. So it becomes their idea versus my idea. So that's probably the big difference.
And then do they also, like, if they, like, I'm assuming your clients probably do what their calendar says, but is there like accountability on like how well it's being done, or?
No, I don't like to, because kind of like, I think you said it, you know, we all have different expectations, and I don't want to instill my expectation, but I also want to, you know, have them kind of understand the importance of those things, because I share, you know, you're sharing a wall with other people, and if you're not keeping your space clean, you're potentially affecting other people with rodents or bugs, and they don't want to live like that. So I want them to kind of understand, okay, it's not just about you, it's about other people around you. And so that's kind of where I let them sort of become the you know, the sort of driving that level of cleanliness. And then if it's just still too much, then I just kind of keep talking and asking them what they think. Like the other day I had a kid, he was supposed to clean his bathroom and it was an absolute mess. And so I came to see him. I said, did you clean your bathroom? He said, yeah, I did. I said, if I go see it, will it be clean? He said, no, it won't be. And I said, okay. So, I mean, he was honest and he knew it wasn't, he didn't do it, but I said, all right, next time I need it clean. So, you know, it's just kind of case by case.
Okay, that makes sense. It's, to me, it's kind of like, in my head, I'm like, so like, when it comes to these things, how do you implement in a trauma-informed way of like, this is cleanliness, or this is washed right, or this is swept right? Like, how do you do that in a trauma-informed way of implementing a quality standard?
I think the key thing is you never use the words right or wrong. You know, it's never right or it's never wrong. It's just, okay, well, maybe do you think this is good enough? Because, you know, if you do, then it's okay. You know, I think that hearing right or wrong is just so in that trauma informed area, that's like really where it can just shut someone down. So that's what I do.
Sorry, Maya. And then also too, like, do you guys have like how would you say it, like an assessment with your clients on like, hey, like, you've been working with us for 3 months. This is our eval. Like, what do you feel like you need more help in? What do you need from me? Like, just kind of things like that, that you kind of touch base with your client and ask them about what they feel like is lacking or needing.
So we just had the Gallup folks rejoin, and I think they might have a lot to add to this conversation, and I just want to kind of integrate them back in and update them. So Elijah was just asking if, like, kind of with that check-in process, if there's a point at like, sorry, I'm trying to like rephrase this, but like, so do you check in and say, hey, so you've been with us for 3 months, what skills do we need to work on still? Where are you at with this skill? What's the protocol there?
Yeah, like usually for me, every 3 months we do a housing stability plan. And it kind of just gives me like an idea of where they're at right now from where we started. I usually try and see, if anything's changed in those 3 months. But most of the time I usually keep in contact with them every month. And so every time I see them, I ask them how their monthly goals are going, and then that kind of leads up to their housing stability plan. But then I also let them know that you are 3 months, 3 months into the program. The next time we meet is going to be, half a year. And so time is really going to, fly by really fast, even if you don't think it is. And so I just kind of give them that, update, HSPs are due every 3 months. So 3, 6, 9, 12. So we only do this pretty much 8 times. It may seem like 2 years is a long time, but, I still want to know what you kind of want to do with yourself, and if you want to go back to school, or if there's anything important you want to get done. Right now is the time to utilize this program and to, get as much as you can from it. And I'm here to help you to achieve those goals. And, just want to let you know you're not in this alone at the moment. But once your 2 years come up, these are going to be some of the things you are going to have to do by yourself. And just kind of giving them like the kind of like a realer picture of, what the program can offer them, besides without the program. And so I just kind of let them know to utilize this program to its fullest potential to get to where they want to be in pretty much 2 years, or maybe even faster than that.
Nice. That makes sense. And now also too, I would love to hear from the Yab as well, like, well, if like from the other side of this perspective, if you guys feel like this is working, or if y'all would change anything, or like, I would just love to hear from the other side of it, what y'all feel like y'all would feel like you need, or yeah.
So that was to the Yab, right? So like Z, Lakita, let's see, Sorrentino. How do you guys feel about that check-in plan? How do you guys feel about the 3-month check-in? Does that work for you guys? Would you like to meet more often? Is that like a good increment? Like what's your guys' opinion on those check-ins?
I think that that works timing wise. I'd also like to add the last 3 months of the term. There should be a little bit more on making sure that there's employment or that you're prepared and understand how to read your bills or how they work, rather than just knowing that you have them, but how to actually handle them. And I know that STAR does that throughout the year, but the importance of those last 3 months, making sure that the client is actually prepared to go out into the world. And I'm sorry, I had to step out a little.
No worries about that. And then Lakita and Tarantino, I know yours is mics are having some issues, but if you want to put in the chat how you guys feel about those check-ins, that'd be awesome. And I agree with you, Z, about those last 3 months. And like I said, the last 14 meeting that we had, we were really trying to focus on a plan for those last 3 months, that exiting protocol. And I think that, you know, we need to kind of create an across the board protocol so that we are all on the same page and that we are making sure that you said there's employment, that you know how to read your bills, that you're utilizing that budget. Okay, and Lakita in the chat, the check-ins help just fine. They help stay on track with my goals, give me an overview and what I have accomplished and what needs to be worked on. Yeah, definitely. I can see how that'd be super beneficial. And I think, yeah, with the goals, that's really cool because then you do see what you accomplished and then you feel accomplished. You feel like you've gotten something done and that's super empowering. Yeah, so I think that's awesome that you guys do the goals. And with the goals, is it like big goals or is it little things? Like I learned how to do my own laundry. I did my laundry successfully for a month. Or what kinds of goals are included in these check-ins?
You kind of get to pick your own goals based off of what you need in your own circumstances.
I agree. I think it is like a combination. I know one thing that's kind of helped in the Gallup office is kind of just explaining to our clients, you know, it's kind of like going upstairs. It doesn't seem like you're getting places, but just one little step at a time will get you to that overall big goal that you need. You can't expect to say, hey, this is my goal is to finish my GED and have it done like tomorrow. We break those big goals into smaller goals, like, hey, I'm gonna go for 2 straight weeks and not miss a day of school. And we can check that off. Okay, I'm gonna spend an hour a day doing my homework. We can check that off. And by the time they know it, they've hit that big goal. So kind of just breaking it up into smaller sections has really helped. Because they don't get overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. It's like, hey, I took that little step. Hey, I did do it. And I did it because I was doing little baby steps instead of just jumping into trying to do it right away.
Yeah,
I think that's actually amazing. But I do also have to ask, like, how do you have that conversation with clients that aren't completing those goals or even working towards those goals? Like, I understand at the end of the day, all we're doing is hurting ourselves when we don't do that stuff. But how do you have that conversation with them to almost bring it to show the urgency of these goals or the importance of them as well?
So I think when we first meet the clients, we do kind of stress the importance of our service participation and meeting goals. If we feel like, you know, one client has just been on the same goal, we'll just have that conversation like, hey, we know you want to finish this. Maybe things have come up. Let's try to refocus our goals and see what it is that we can do to like help you achieve it. You know, it's kind of just like refocusing and replanning. Instead of like you're not doing anything, it's like, okay, well, what can we refocus on? You know, maybe we need to come back to that goal. That could be a long-term goal. Let's refocus on what's happening here and now in your life. And let's plan accordingly to that.
I agree with Janaea. I think when there's a lot of like when we have the anxious piece of the 3-month goal, those are the larger goals. We sit down and kind of have that conversation like, oh, we notice, you know, that you're still working on this. You know, what are some barriers to you achieving this goal? Is it transportation? You know, like what are just having that conversation, like what are the barriers? For example, I have a client that is unable to find a job or get her driver's license due to a warrant. So kind of just bringing out the picture, like, so a lot of it talks about like income or independence, you know, what's preventing you from getting a job, what's preventing you from obtaining your driver's license, and they say the warrant. And so, okay, like how can we tackle this? Because it can be very stressful, not knowing, because she does have custody of her younger siblings. So it's very stressful for her, you know, if something were to happen. So just prioritizing the goal, like what it is that you have to do first. I know Yvette made a progress worksheet. It's just focusing on a goal that you want to do, and it talks about like the resource that you went to, who you talked to, the date of what questions you asked, what was the barriers, what came out of that that encounter that you asked about. So what we did was we called the court together to see what her options were, to see if she was able to do community service, and just sitting down with them and taking that time, even if it is like half a day, if it takes half a day, you know, you're very attentive to their goal. You know, they might be very nervous. So just like taking that time to, you know, help them go through it, even if you are sitting there with them for like support, moral support, while they talk to them on speaker on the phone. So that's just breaking down, you know, what are the barriers, what are the challenges. Sometimes it's just sitting there with them, making them feel comfortable enough to ask them, you know, questions.
I love this concept of what's a goal. Okay, here's your goal. What are the barriers to that goal? And now eliminating those barriers are now some smaller goals that we have. I love this concept of like barriers and goals, and just like mixing them and eliminating barriers a goal. I love that. So we only have about 2 minutes left. This meeting flew by, like all of these meetings do. So I just want to give anybody a chance for any final questions or comments.
I just wanted to say, so I am the landlord liaison for, you know, Sandoval, for San Juan, McKinley, Cibola, Los Alamos. So I was on maternity leave. I started back again on Monday. So if you have any claims or any questions about possible damages to clients' homes, please feel free to email me or call me to see if maybe a client may, you know, qualify for our program. And also, you know, I do speak with the landlords directly just to kind of see what there is that I can do to help support the landlords. Our overall goal is to hopefully start getting more landlords that are willing to work with us, you know, anytime they have availabilities, calling us. So if you have any questions about the program, please reach out, and we can see if there's a way that we could help the landlords and the clients.
Awesome. Thank you for that update and congratulations. That's awesome. Super exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, so contact Janaea with any questions about claims or landlords. And I wanted to also remind everybody that if you think that there's somebody that would really benefit from being in this space, please invite them. We'd love to have them. And if you have any ideas for topics to be discussed in this meeting or guest speakers to come to this meeting, please send them all my way, and I'm here to put it into an agenda. Yeah, and Forrest has put in the chat, there will be an update on the landlord collaboration program in the next core team meeting. So that's going to be really, really exciting. And so yeah, that's all for me. Thank you guys all so much for your participation in this meeting. These meetings are one of my favorite parts of my job. So yeah, just thank you all for your devotion and participation, and I can't wait for next month.
Everybody have a good holiday. If I don't talk to you then. Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Hey, thank y'all for y'all
Have a good
time.
day.